I'm Dick Helm, and welcome to the 65th anniversary celebration of the Winchester Little Theatre. This video was produced so that you could see some of the things that have happened through the history of the theatre and give you an idea of how things were then and how they are today. We'll start with a few interviews with some people who played some pretty major roles for the theatre, both on the stage and off. And then we'll show you how things are working today. So, come on inside. It's showtime. We're on the set of The Uninvited, the final production in the Winchester Little Theatre's 93-94 season. It's a beautiful set, but this will soon be nothing more than memories and rubble, like all sets before it. We haven't always been so fortunate to have a facility like this to house our productions. Oftentimes, the theater took on a nomadic role and put productions together anywhere that they could find. With us today are two ladies to discuss those nomadic years, Ms. Eloise Strader and Ms. Marion Lewis. Ladies, we've had a lot of productions in a lot of places. Tell us some of the areas that you had to deal with and some of the problems that you ran into.
Well, first of all, we just read plays. Now, this was during the war. Then we did it at the Baptist Church.
You did some in the swimming, was it the Moose Lodge or the Elks Lodge?
Yes. And
they had the swimming pool in
and that
behind.
The Armory. Where else?
Well, we did them after I came back. We did them in James Wood High School. We did them in Hanley High School.
Well, anyway, our first big production after the war. The first big production was Goodbye My Fancy at James Wood School. It was sort of started the Little Theatre again.
In any of your productions, were there some people that surprised you with their ability or maybe even inability?
We didn't really think of that. Whatever that seemed to fit the person in the cast, we would do. We had to enlist some people, but we just did it for fun. You're doing it for fun, I'm sure. And it might not have been as perfect. It's improved no end. We were real amateurs. It was just for fun.
We even went out on the street and drug people in.
Yep.
If we knew them, we'd go get them.
Come on.
As I was thinking, I did cast Mary Huntsberry in her first play. We did The Girls in 509 in the 80s, and Mary was in that. Joan Scorgi was in that. Fraser was in it. It was a wonderful cast.
Well, Joan Scorgi played the Queen. She's still doing it. Played the Queen in Lion in Winter.
Yes.
And of course, she still had that little British accent. She was marvelous.
The Winchester Little Theatre was organized in 1929, and while theaters are always theaters, there were some things that were handled a little differently then. With us to discuss some of those things is Dr. Leon Slavin. Leon, when did you get involved with the theater?
Well, it's when I came to Winchester in '34, and Dr. McGuire would check my eyes, thought I ought to give up. I was taking care of a practice down in Mount Jackson of a Dr. Delp anyway, so I came here in '34. And I was sitting, some of the gals that I'd known, I didn't have a car when I was down in Mount Jackson, but people would go to various parties up in Winchester, and I'd be asked to go along. Anyway, so it wasn't long before a couple of gals of the GAA, the Girls Athletic Association, asked me if I'd be in their productions, one of these home talent things. And of course, I couldn't say I was too busy because I was sitting in the waiting room reading magazines. So I went in, and that was, I had an act there with Elsie Mae Gaunt, and we were supposed to do a little shuffle off to Buffalo up and across the front of the stage there, and do a little song and dance there, and it was awkward for me, but you know, you got to do it. But anyway, Bill Hollis was the master of ceremonies, black tie and so on, and he got sick. I forget what it was. Anyway, they asked me if I would take it, and I was delighted. But now, so I introduced the acts as he had. Anyway, it so happened Dr. Williams, a fellow named John Williams, his father was R. Gray Williams, a lawyer, and he was director of the Little Theatre at that time, and he was scouting. He and Georgia Conrad and Rookie Kern were scouting for talent to put on The Drunkard. You see, they were going to put that on. So, as it so happened, the girls told me that John said, well, there's the man for The Drunkard. And here I was all prettied up with our makeup and so on. Both of them said, oh, John. Well, anyway, they asked me if I would do it, and I went on with it. And so we put the Drunkard on. That was out at the beer tavern just on the borderline of West Virginia. And I forget the name of it. But anyway, they had a stage built there and had tables, big long tables. And at that time, of course, that was Prohibition time, and people, beer was served, some kind of beer, but everybody seemed to have their own bottle. Well, we put it on for 2 nights, and then it was through. Being new in town, and I'd been invited to a party Saturday night, and I didn't want the girls there, both Georgia and Brookie, had sold 35 tickets, I think, for another night. None of us, we hated that, but the sold, so what are you going to do? So we put it on. Now this time, every time I came off the stage, it was always, for the first 2 nights, it was the same thing, that always somebody there with a bottle. How about a drink, Doc? And of course, I wouldn't touch it because of the lines I had. But that 3rd night, every time I came off there was always somebody there with a bottle, and I took a little sip every time. Got up to my big moment there was where I was passed out in ostensibly the barn, you see, because you could tell it was a barn. There's a big stack of hay right over there, and I was flat on my back. Now then, the curtain opens up, I hear that, and I start to get up. Well, the overhead kind of swung around a little bit like that, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get sick. And I put my head back down, and I thought it all over, took some deep breaths. I thought I had myself controlled, and I tried getting up slowly again, got over my elbow, and it all came out, just the soliloquy. And so I got by that. That was a Little Theatre. We put it on 3 nights.